but without testing, they're just guessing.
Yep.
Right. They were just, I think it could be happening here. Let's put a big thing of open cell spray foam along this seam and that'll fix it.
Yeah. Just throwing different stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks.
And nothing stuck.
Welcome to the Flow Lab, the podcast where we dive deep into the science of building performance and HVAC innovations. Today, we bring you another insightful episode aimed to enhance your knowledge and expertise in the field. Joining us are your co-hosts, Ben Walker, co-CEO of Retrotec, and Sam Myers, a renowned building science specialist and Retrotec trainer. Together, they bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to ensure our discussions are both informative and engaging. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to enter the Flow Lab, where we'll explore the world of building performance. Let's get started.
Well, Michael, Greg, thanks for joining us. And for those of you watching or will be listening, I guess you'll see that we also have a new co-host with us for this episode too. I'd like to introduce Lee Canegaly from our tech support team and our dev team too. So Lee is kind of the guy that's behind the scenes to make all of our software work these days. So, no pressure on that at all.
No pressure.
And yeah. That's our motto, right? No pressure, except for when we need it for a blower door, right?
Yeah, except for Pascal.
But so Lee's helping me co-host this week or for this episode, and we brought in Greg and Michael because I think for our companies that we work with across North America, they're the ones that probably do the widest variety of testing. They're not just doing home performance. They're also getting into some commercial work as well as the enclosure integrity side of things for the fire industry. And Michael, you called me a few days ago talking about testing what?
That was that gas tracer technology. They want us to test those prefabbed blast-proof buildings that are constructed out of metal. They're brought in off-site. They're, between 1,000 square feet and 400 square feet, and they're blast-proof. And so they want us to do a gas tracer test to find where the air leaks are, because they replaced the HVAC dampers. So we're trying to convince them, and I guess we're still in the process of trying to convince them to let us come in and do an ASTM E779 blower door test in lieu of the gas tracer.
Yeah. In my experience, if they're asking for that, it's because they're just not aware of blower door testing.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully they'll decide to go that route. But what are there's blast proof rooms? What are they typically used in?
Industrial settings where there's a risk of explosion or some kind of volatile leak of some sort. A lot of the refineries, a lot of the chemical manufacturers here in the South Louisiana area all have to have shelters in place due to all the dangerous chemicals they play with. So they all have shelters in place, and several of them have, since I guess the federal government said, hey, you're going to have shelters in place for these employees. And through the last 15, 20 years, they've rotated out the old brick and mortar and drywall and stick built SIPs and changed them over to these prefab metal buildings that can withstand a bomb blast and also can be made airtight.
Wow. That's really interesting. So let's kind of, I guess, back up and start more at the beginning. Greg, you and Michael have been doing this for quite a while. What got you started into airtightness testing and building performance?
Thanks for having this. I had a house that was really in bad shape, but my wife was in love with it. So she had to promise me that she would let me do whatever I had to do before we moved in. And that's how I started researching. Their utility bills were just outrageous, but this is what she wanted. So then I came across Retrotec, across some people that could test it. And I was just so amazed that I said, man, I'm going to get into that. That I had such a great feeling. I'm going to give that to others.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I started, and just plowed through and learned it a little bit from, Retrotec. I took all the classes and then ordered the different equipment and just started going for it.
Yeah. I feel like that's how a lot of us learn the best is just dealing with it personally, right? I don't know if our house was that bad when we bought it, but we bought it a few years ago. It was built in 92 with absolutely nothing performance wise in mind, and about 30 years of bad advice and repairs that I've been seeing along the way as I've been working on it. But yeah, I've learned a ton just by working on my own place with my own problems. So no, that's amazing. So you started out doing this from the residential side. How did you get more into some of the commercial stuff that you're doing now?
A couple of clients that we had done residential work contacted us because there's quite a number of plants and different type of sensitive material locations, manufacturers and stuff all along the Gulf Coast, and the Mississippi River runs right through Baton Rouge. And that also is a good transport for a lot of companies. And so they're all down here in South Louisiana and started going for it.
Yeah, Michael, if you want to just kind of give us a rundown of what Enclosure Integrity is and just how that ties into the fire industry and how a blower door is involved with that.
So any of these buildings that have the fire suppression system that uses anything but water, so any type of gas or fire suppressant, we come in and basically just like we're doing in Fantastic, and we measure the room, we get the dimensions, and then we use the blower door to see how long the agent will actually hold in the air, because the agent has to hold for 10 minutes minimum for it to be a good test. And like Greg said, all up and down the Mississippi River and all along the Gulf Coast, there's so many different chemical companies and refineries that they've all got these fire suppression systems in them. So now it's a matter of, hey, when was the last time they were tested? Oh, they've never been tested. Well, how do you know if it trips, it's going to put the fire out? Well, we don't. So let us come in and test it. Or a lot of times we'll partner with a fire suppression company like a Valent or a Pipe Barker or somebody that's got their foot in the door, and they say, well, we're going to install the system, but we want a third party to come in and test and verify that it's going to do what we said it's going to do. And so we just pick our way around to whoever needs us and offer our services, and away we go.
Yeah, that's really cool. So basically, it's you're testing the room to make sure that whatever's in there will be protected, from whatever chemical is going to be used. And let's say if it's a server room or something, that gas that's used to protect it has to retain at a certain height for a certain amount of time.
Correct. Yeah. And it also has to, stay at that certain height, and it has to be a certain concentration for that 10-minute time period. And if all of that happens correctly, then it's supposed to extinguish the fire. And in some of these server rooms, we were in one several years ago, the server room was $100 million. Wow. And they were squawking at us about the price of our test.
Yeah.
So, you've got $100 million room full of equipment, but you want to nickel and dime us over the cost of this test that's going to tell you whether or not the room will actually be extinguished if the fire alarm is tripped.
Yeah, it seems a little too important to nickel and dime on, for sure.
Yes.
So you guys are located in South Louisiana. In the work that you're doing now, about how much of it is commercial versus residential, or is it like an even spread, or does it change?
It's very fluid. I just got done doing a lot of residential code compliance, residential stuff. And then we're probably next week going to be thrown right back into the refinery, and it's going to be room integrity again. And so we're going to be air sealing a blast proof control room, and then testing and verifying that it's going to hold for X amount of minutes and stuff like that. But I would probably say 70-30, 70 residential, 30 industrial, commercial.
Okay.
But last year it might have been 60 commercial and 40 residential. So it's very fluid.
Industrial.
Yeah. It's just who needs us the most and who's willing to pay and actually write the check and let's go. A lot of people want us to say, we can come in and do this, this, and this. And they're like, great. And we're 2 years out, and there's hey, are you ready to come do this? Yeah, we were ready 2 years ago, but we're just now getting the PO. So,
Yeah, that's something about you guys too, is that you're not just testing, you're actually doing the air sealing
correct
as well. So was that always the plan, or did it just become a need that needed to be filled that you were willing to offer, or how did you get into that too?
Well, once we started testing, they were like failing, and they were looking at us going, what do we do? And so I started investigating it and realizing that was probably the bigger part of the opportunity, was that if somebody did fail, they would not know how to repair it or bring it up to code. And that's when I started doing the air sealing.
Yeah, that makes sense to be, just kind of the one-stop shop. It's like, okay, yeah, here's the test. Okay, if it fails, we can tell you why and we can fix it. I mean, it makes sense.
Correct.
We see a lot of that too. We see some weatherization companies that are, doing a lot of that. We see some HVAC companies that are kind of starting to get into that too. But I'm assuming in the commercial work that you do, it might be a little bit different. Like, for example, if you're testing, a blast-proof room or something like that, like what are you going to use to seal that if it doesn't pass?
Well, we initially investigate what the pressure might be, but most of the time just air sealing, spray foam and some tape.
Fire rated materials on any of the NFPA stuff. You've got to have all fire related, and that's where the expense comes from.
Yeah.
One tube of a certain sealant is $120 plus tax. So if you use 50 of those in a room, you've built up some pretty sizable bills.
Yeah, some extra costs there.
We've had several that repurposed their room because they didn't like how much it was going to cost to bring it up to speed.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? I mean, if it's going to work, it's got to be tight, and that doesn't happen for free. So,
well, and above the ceiling, sometimes it's another 15, 20 feet. We have to get scaffolding in, and the cost just starts really ramping up.
Yeah, I can imagine so, especially those spaces get pretty large.
Of the enclosures that you all test, how often do you run into that situation where like things just aren't going to work out and the client ends up just going a different route versus trying to seal it and get a pass?
Not very many. I mean, there's been a few times where they said, yeah, we just won't use this for a shelter in place, or we won't store this vital equipment in here. Maybe 3 or 4 times out of all the stuff. And I've been with Greg 5 years. So it doesn't happen very often, because the fact that they've already got so much time and money invested into these rooms, and the equipment is so vital to the production of the facility that it's worth it for them to either try to hire a crew and come in and do it, or pay us to do it. So,
yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure if they can't use that room as they were planning to, that probably throws a big wrench into things as well. So,
right, if you've got $10 million worth of servers in a room, you're not just going to up and move the server room.
Exactly,
you've got to figure it out.
So when you're doing the fire test, the enclosure integrity test, is it usually for server rooms that you're seeing down where you are?
It could be there. It could be for anything, but a lot of it is the server rooms. But any room that's protected by fire protection equipment, really. So it doesn't matter what's in the room. It's just, is there a fire suppression system in here other than water? Yes. Okay. Then it needs to be tested and we need to verify.
It's more, is the facility protected by an agent, regardless of what it's, protecting, whether it's primarily computers, but also all other sorts of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So back when you started out, you went from residential to going into more of this commercial work. What was the learning curve like, going from just doing residential blower door testing, getting into something like this? I mean, how was the work different? What else is there? What else is there extra to learn about it?
Opening every conduit. Taking every plate off the wall, whether it's a switch plate or an outlet cover, and completely air sealing that. You don't typically do that in every house you go into. Anywhere there's a penetration of any kind through the envelope, you've got to trace it down and figure out, can it leak into the building or can it leak around the penetration? And it's tedious. The materials all have to be fire rated and they're super expensive, and you just got to go, foot by foot, completely all four walls and ceiling and the floors and figure it out.
Yeah.
A lot of the rooms that we have a subfloor, and that brings another level of complication.
Where you pull up the floor tile and you look, there's 10,000 cables that going through 10,000 holes. So here we go. We got to seal them.
Yeah. So that space below is actually going to be part of the enclosure that you're testing, right? Correct. So you have to take that into consideration too, and see where it leads and connects to. So
yeah, that's a big thing down here. They built a lot of these in the 50s and 60s out of solid concrete block. But then, we need to run wires. Well, let's get a roto hammer and drill through the bricks, and we'll just run our cable through there and everything will be great. Out of sight, out of mind, under the floor, it's all good, right? No, it doesn't work like that. We've got to wall that off now and figure out how we can get enough material in between all of those cables to make it airtight, or at least tight enough that it will hold for the specified hold time.
And there's a software component that's involved with this too, that may not always be involved with residential.
Correct. Yeah, we just faced that with one of our clients that we're dealing with now. Is they had 2% concentration, and they've had it since the 80s, and they assumed that was enough to extinguish the fire. I'm like, dude, we can't even go forward with the test. We have to stop right here because there's not enough agent in these canisters to even complete the test. We can't move forward. We have to stop and be done until you verify there's enough agent to get to the 7% concentration based on the volume of the room. That just happened in December with one of our clients here in Baton Rouge that we're dealing. And so they're going back and talking to the designer of the system, and they're trying to, but yeah, the software, the NFPA software that you guys make says it has to be 7% or higher for this particular concentration of this agent. And they had 2. And I thought I was the crazy one. And it turns out, no, I talked to Lee, I talked to people, and they're like, well, you can't go forward with the test. There's nothing to test. There's not enough agent. There's not enough concentration.
Wow. So that maybe wasn't so much of a problem with the room itself. That was just the system that was designed and installed.
We don't know how leaky the room is because we never got to that step.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and can you imagine, you've got $70 million worth of stuff sitting in a room that you assume is protected for the last 30 years. And had there actually been a fire and you pushed a button, I doubt it would have extinguished anything.
Yeah, that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, the software that's used is called Fantastic. Fantastic is what we use to do a lot of large commercial building tests. Fantastic Integrity is a separate piece of software that's used specifically for this, the Enclosure Integrity, for the fire side of the industry.
Right.
And that's something that one of our founders, Colin Genge, came up with back in the 80s, where he figured out that, we could actually use blower doors to figure out problems in these types of rooms. And and it's been adopted worldwide ever since. And I think it's really great that you guys have gotten into this because, like I said, you guys are the only ones that I know of in the U.S. that are doing this and home performance. It's more common in Europe and other parts of the world where they'll kind of do like both kinds of testing. But yeah, as far as I know, you guys are the only ones doing it. So across the wide variety of blower door tests that you guys have conducted, what would you say might be the most unique project that you've worked on?
Holy cow.
You told us in advance.
I've since
sorry, I threw that one at you. What comes to mind
some
first?
Pictures to you and Lee of the guy that I went and tested his little 900 square foot house, and I told him you have to air seal where the floor meets the walls. And you remember he went out with a can of that cheap spray foam, and he went around the actual piers that go up into the house.
Yeah,
where the piers and the dirt meet, and he put foam around every one of those piers to air seal that house. And then they put trash in the actual space where you should have put the insulation and the spray foam. You remember that? I think I've
Is that
showed
the
you
photo
both
where you
those
open the crawl
pictures.
space door and you just see this mountain of foam?
Yeah, that one
inside.
was just a few weeks ago. Just a huge mountain of foam, probably 4 feet tall from the dirt all the way to the floor joist of the house. That one was, and they were having cupping issues with their hardwood floors in their master area. And I'm like, I can't get under there to inspect it for you because you've literally built a mountain of foam so large that I couldn't fit my body in there to get in there to look. So I've seen some strange things, and usually when I see them, you guys see them. So
Michael,
I appreciate the photos.
The one where the man died.
Oh, I don't know how much we can talk. We were just called in to come down to a house in the New Orleans area where Entergy is one of our major energy suppliers, and they dug up a gas line in front of a house.
Oh no!
Left it open all night, and 3 people in the house asphyxiated, and there's lawyers involved. So we had to go down there 2 weeks ago, and we used smoke bombs and a blower door fan to prove the theory that if gas was emitting from this hole, from this leak all night long, that it could. And we used the smoke bombs, and they went, when we turned the fan on and blew it toward the venting under the crawl space of the house, the venting, which is right next to this hole where this gas line was leaking. And the attorneys and the architect and the engineer went in and they videoed, and it showed the smoke coming into the bedrooms and coming down the halls and going into the return of the HVAC system and being blown through the whole house. It was incredible.
Terrible. Yeah,
it's a terrible situation, but it was a super nerd.
But the fact that you could recreate it,
yes,
that's fascinating.
But we get into all kinds of strange situations that your normal just going in and doing code compliance, blower door testing, and duct leakage testing don't get into. So
yeah, I would say so. And I think it's interesting too that when I asked you what's the most unique tests out of all the stuff you do, both of them were residential. Because when you get into existing homes, especially for me, it's something new every time.
You don't know what's going to be behind the wall or under the house or in the attic. It's just, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So, we've been in some situations in the commercial side and the industrial side, but usually those places are sort of buttoned up. They've sort of got their act together. They know, hey, there's somebody's life is on the line if this isn't somewhat correct. So they try a little harder. But we've seen some junk on the industrial side too that they called shelters in place, and you'd be better off standing in a field than you would be going into this room. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody out there that listens to the podcast and wants to get in touch with us, we'll travel anywhere in the country and test and do this. We've done all over the Gulf South, and we're willing to travel anywhere and share our expertise and show people how to do it or what have you.
Yeah, so that's where that's if you were to take someone that's really just kind of has a residential background and wanted to maybe explore into this territory a little bit into getting into more of the commercial work, what would be some of your recommendations or advice?
Yeah, well, you're going to need a lot of certifications. You're going to need what they call a TWIC card. You're going to need to do a lot of the site-specific training courses, any of the OSHA certified 8-hour safety courses, and then any particular industry that you're going into each has their own specific 2 to 3 hour test that you have to take just to come on site. So you've got to go through all of that testing, and then
mention your apparel.
Oh, and you've got to have fire rated apparel from head to toe, hard hats, safety boots, the whole spiel. But it can be done. And all you've got to do is get to the right safety person or the right engineer at any of these facilities and say, hey, when was the last time any of your shelters in place were tested? When was the last time your rooms were tested for integrity if they have fire suppression? And away you go. You just, you start the bid process and start taking measurements.
Yeah, the liability is an issue also.
Oh yeah, you've got to have several $1 million blanket umbrella policies and insurances to cover you and your employees.
And usually when we get a new client, they have a different requirement than our past clients. So we have to re-up all over again.
Right. And I'm sure every job site's probably different, especially maybe if you're getting onto federal property or something like that, where you have to have, special training for that specific site. I've had to go through that before. So yeah, commercial is a different beast. Yes. Absolutely. So yeah, I commend you guys for tackling both, because it's not easy. And to be able to have that experience is on both sides is super valuable.
So I've found that when you say commercial, I think of retail,
strip malls,
office buildings, those type of things. And they, because of the way, I don't know if it's everywhere, but in Louisiana, the owner of the building doesn't care because all the
tenants,
the utilities are the responsibility of whoever's occupying the space.
Right.
So it's everybody's job becomes nobody's job. And they have these huge utility bills, but they're unwilling. We can go in and we've bid several jobs, but we don't get very many because they look at the price tag and they can't really justify on a 3-year lease investing, which would be, probably a lot more than.
Yeah, because they're not the ones that are actually saving the money on it. So
no, yeah. We had one situation that it was a cigar bar on the end of a strip mall, and the cigar smoke kept floating down to all the other inhabitants in the strip mall. And we were called in 2 or 3 different times on that same project. And we haven't been called in a while. Owner lived in Ohio that owned the strip mall, right? And we're in South Louisiana. And so the cigar bar on the end is the bad guy because its smoke is going down and infiltrating 1, 2, 3, 4 other spaces in this strip mall. So we air sealed, and then okay, everything's great. And then a year later, our phone ring. It's the same guy. Hey, guess what? They're still getting cigar smoke. So we found out it was the fire break in between. Outside of the building, there's maybe a 4.5 foot wide by maybe 3.5 foot tall space that runs the whole length of the building. So they actually had to build a wall to stop the smoke because it was coming out of the door, up through the fire chase, and going down through the front of the buildings and then infiltrating back in. So the last guy that called me, that's what I told him to do. Figure out a way to build a fireproof wall out of some cement board or something that's going to not burn or burn slow enough so that's what they did. And then they used fire rated materials, and they actually closed that breezeway off. Everything's above a finished ceiling, so they couldn't see any of it. But we haven't been called back since. So
I guess no news is good news,
right? And that was the one headache of a commercial job. We like to classify all these other ones that we do as industrial because it's usually
that makes sense.
A plant setting of some sort. So yeah. But
so with the cigar shop, the strip mall, how did you find that air leakage pathway?
Just blower door.
Just a blower door and. Did you use like fog or anything like that? Or were you able to feel a breeze through that area?
You could visually see a lot of it because you could see daylight going into the other shop.
Oh, wow.
Top of where the walls met, and then we used the Tiny S smoke device. Mm-hmm. And I think some of it too, which probably hasn't been resolved, is they needed to put backdraft dampers on the bathroom exhaust fans because they're just exhausting up above the drop ceiling. They're not exhausting out of the roof.
Oh no.
And so you've got the restrooms for women's and men's for a bar, but there's also staff restrooms on the other side that are right up against the next tenant. Okay. So they need to figure out a way to stop the smoke from going up into the fan and just into the space,
or vent those to the outside like they're supposed to be.
Correct. They weren't. So but this place had, I don't know, 5 or 6 what they call industrial smoke scrubbers that were in the actual lounge part.
Yeah.
None of that made a difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
It was all just, and you could see where somebody had come in at some point and spray foamed all of this with their heavy duty, commercial spray. And then you can see where they've tried to tape this and that, and but without testing, they're just guessing.
Yep.
Right. They were just, I think it could be happening here. Let's put a big thing of closed cell spray foam. I think they used open cell, but either way, let's put a big thing of open cell spray foam along this seam and that'll fix it.
Yeah. Just throwing different stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks.
And nothing stuck. And so until we got in there, we put the blower door on. Oh yeah. Well, here's a whole seam that runs the whole length of this wall that connects right next to the dress shop that's complaining about the smoke smell. Let's seal this wall and see what happens.
Yeah. I had something similar. I had a hotel that I tested towards the end of last year that was having high humidity issues, and the new owners just bought it, and they went through one summer and called me over the winter to come check it out, and they had all of their bath fans just vented into the
space
into the attic that was spray foamed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we fogged it too and found that whoever did the spray foam job just went down the roof deck towards the soffit and then just foamed it to the loose fill fiberglass insulation. It stopped right there.
Yeah. So it went around the foam, under the loose fill, and right where it wanted to go.
Yeah.
Right?
So
holy cow.
Yeah. Like existing buildings, you'll find some funky stuff for sure.
Yeah, but somebody paid a lot of money, probably several tens of thousands to do a whole hotel.
Yeah, they did 3 buildings like that.
So I would say that's probably 30 or 40K.
Yeah, at least.
And it didn't do anything because they didn't know what they were doing. Right? Yeah. Gee, what other questions do you want to try to answer while we're...
Yeah, we've covered a lot. We've talked about all different kinds of testing, some different projects. If you were to give any parting words to anyone that's coming into the building performance industry, whether if it's residential, commercial, or industrial, because the workforce for all of it is we can take whoever we can get that's willing to learn it. There's not a lot of companies that are doing this kind of work, and we need it as many people as we can get. So for newcomers that are coming into this kind of stuff, what would you advise?
Training. Learn as much as you can. Nerd out. Go deep. Go down the rabbit hole as far as you can go. And then a lot of it's just trial and error. If you don't know, ask somebody. Call you guys. Call Retrotec. Call Lee. Call somebody and say, hey, here's what I'm looking at. What would you suggest? But the main thing is get trained. Go through all of the classes you guys offer. Take some from some of your competitors, BPI, anybody, but get trained. The more training you have, the better off, because you're likely going to see something along the way in all of those training classes that you can use when you get up against a strange situation.
Absolutely. I agree. Greg, you've been doing this for quite some time. Is there anything you wish you would have known before you got into any of this that you know now?
Well, it did change I don't know what I would call it. The playing field changed once everybody had to do it. So that really complicated it for our business, because that meant there was a greater need than we could meet by far. I mean, and so people that were in the HVAC business thought they could do this on the side and serve their clients that way.
And this is more for the residential side, correct?
Correct. Yeah. When the building code got implemented in 2015.
So that, and the only reason I mentioned is we had to come behind many, apparently finished jobs that were still a problem. Many of them after they'd already been moved in, and they were having really serious humidity issues. And down here, there's a lot of moisture in the air, and then it gets trapped, and then it starts the biological growth syndrome kicks in, and it's complicated and dangerous. And we've seen the results of it. So we are firsthand seeing that nasty mold or whatever it is and what it does to people and to materials. So that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's what's on my mind.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'm in the Southeast also, not as far south as you guys are, but a humid climate is tough to make a building behave, and everything has to go right. So I would say that's probably in my area, at least, probably yours too. Usually the phone rings for existing buildings because of something humidity related.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
So, yeah.
That and the builders think we're the bad guys and that the government's just out for more money, that all these tests are BS and there's no reason to do them. A house needs to breathe. All of the stories you've heard your whole life.
Me and Michael get a good kick out of, we find it's hard to get the information out of them because they're kicking it down, but they don't want to admit it because they're uncomfortable. But if they told us they were uncomfortable, we could help them meet their goals. And so it's a kind of a endless loop. But so that's it. We kind of laugh at that when we encounter that. It's funny.
What do you leave your thermostat set at? Oh, 75. And then you go in and the day you're testing and you look at, the thermostat set at 64. And you're wondering why there's mold on the second story, but there's nothing happening on the first floor. It's all on the second floor. And you're like, wow, okay. So, yeah. You get to meet a lot of different people and you get to see a lot of different things in this business. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's one physics lesson after another.
Yes. Yeah. And I really didn't do physics in college or high school. I went the other way and went chemistry, but I steered clear of physics and now I use it a lot. So.
Yep. Well, I really appreciate both of you coming on and spending the time just to kind of talk about what you've been up to and how you got started and just sharing the stories. I'm sure folks that are listening will find a lot of this intriguing, especially all the different work that you do, from dealing with humid residential homes to commercial to industrial. So it's fascinating, and I know we'll stay in touch as you get into other stuff. Looking forward to some other crazy pictures from you, Michael.
Okay. You've got the most recent one, so whenever the next crazy one comes along, I'll definitely send it to you and Lee.
We really appreciate Retrotec.
Absolutely. We're always happy to work with you guys.
Yes, and we lean on you a lot. We're thankful for your relationships and for just being able to pick up the phone and call at any point today and say, hey, here's this idea. What do you think? Or how would you approach this situation? So, yeah, it makes a difference in our business for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad we could be useful. It's fun for me too. Everyone's like a new puzzle to try to figure out. So,
yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you both, and we'll catch you next time.